I do remember that, and we used to joke about that as kids until you get into coaching, and then you realize he was right, because you know, for every time that you overlook somebody or you don't take them seriously, you get embarrassed. And I think the biggest thing that my dad always did was you always have to prepare for their best, because that's what you should expect them to bring. And if they don't bring their best, then there's nothing you can do about that. But if you prepare for their best and you expect their best, then you're going to be ready. And I think that's what he emphasized. I think, you know, a lot of people blew it into, well, he just, you know, blowing smoke, making them better than they are. But really, when you look at it, if they play their best, then they are good at these things and they can beat us. And so we do the same thing here, and we're going to prepare for Martin's best. And Martin's best is good enough to beat us if we don't come ready to play.
But you did when you were a kid, though. You thought that was fun.
Yeah, I made fun of him all the time. That's part of being an immature 11-year-old, just like my son. He does the same thing with me.
You talked about a committee approach to the defensive line. Will it similar offensive on the offensive line for you, because you want to get maybe some of these other freshmen involved?
Yeah, it's not. In fact, it's the exact opposite. You know, and I'm not a big committee guy, just philosophical. Committees are what slow everything down. We have a lot of committees here at UT. A lot of people, a lot of committees. So the committee approach at D-line is not what you would want to structure. But the offensive line, we have 5 guys who really have performed consistently well together. And we're going to try to keep that continuity as best we can. And that doesn't mean we won't play some of the young guys, and it doesn't mean we're afraid to, but it's just a little different on the offensive line.
What have been your impressions, and how comfortable are you with Juwan, their tackle?
I'm as comfortable as probably any coach could ever be with a true freshman starting at right tackle.
How much is that?
You know, Juwan could barely breathe in the mock bench from anxiety, and there was nobody in the stands. So you can't forget he's a true freshman. We laughed about it in the staff meeting today. We act like the guy's a junior, because you know he's like one of our veterans. He's been here 7 months, not 2 months. But he's extremely mature. He's very balanced. He's intelligent. He's going to be a really good player. I don't know how he's going to perform Saturday. And so I'm not going to be surprised if we go in a little rat trap. You know, we got. It's what happens. I go back to just think of the first time you did anything. First time you tried to ride a bike, you fell down. You know. First time you tried to walk, boom. This is the first time they're going to play major college football on a big stage. So there's going to be some rat trapping going on, but that's okay. It's okay. We coach through it, we work through it, we stay calm, go to the next play, go to the next drive. And that's what's going to be important. And we got to do a good job as coaches not to panic and scream. And I always say that, and I'm the first one that breaks the rule.
Eric, if you, anywhere in your coaching, if you had a freshman start like this in the offensive line,
we had a freshman at Tech start about the 4th or 5th game of the year. Never the first game. I'm trying to think back of all my years of watching a true freshman to come in. It's a rare deal. I'm sure there's been some. You know, don't forget Schofield's a freshman. He's a redshirt though, so we act like he's a senior. And Dallas is a sophomore, and he's a veteran, which means he's like an old man. Cody Pope's never played center in his life. Can't say that after next Saturday.
Nick said earlier that coming out of spring, that offensive line scared us a little bit, just in terms of their shortcomings. They said they really showed a lot of improvement over the summer in the fall camp. And how far have they?
Yeah, I think they scare them now in a different way, because they come out and butt them in the mouth, and we go team run. But they've come a long way. But you know, if y'all remember, I've always never had a lot of concern about our offensive line, other than the lack of experience. And I can't fix that. But as far as the talent level and the willingness and the work ethic and the size and the toughness, I feel good about those guys. The only thing I don't feel good about is the thing that only Saturday will start fixing, and that's experience. Now, I may have a different view next Monday, because you never know how they're going to perform.
Jared, would you rather play an opening game early in the day than late, just because of the nature of the game, the jitters and that kind of stuff? Would you rather just get it?
I wish we could kick off at like 9 in the morning every game. And, you know, but I've gotten used to this night stuff. 5 years in Baton Rouge, that's what you did. And I loved it in the NFL because we kicked off at 1. And I was like, holy smokes, you know, you're home for dinner, which is incredible. But we had some night games at Tech early on. I think the early night games are good for the heat, John, because it is hot, and when you got a thin squad. But I kind of like those day games, especially as you move later into the year.
That Marsalis bracket with Gordon there, is that really even, and that surprised you how far he's come so quickly?
Yeah, well, it has, and we needed him to. So it's good to have 3 corners that you feel good about. It helps you nickel. You know, when we go nickel, Mike can move Art in or somebody else in the nickel spot, put those 2 guys out there, and it's good for competition. So he's done great.
You've been so complimentary of Eric. I mean, that almost makes it seems like Marsalis, is he playing just as well? And that's the
Yeah, they're different too. You know, they're 2 different guys. Eric is a real physical guy. He's got a lot of energy, a feisty competitor. Marsalis probably plays a little bit better the deeper the field goes, if that makes sense. I think his experience on offense with ball judgment, the deep part of the field, you know, his ability, his hips, those kind of things. So that's the only time Eric is a little bit riskier. You know, he takes some risks. Marcel's a little bit calmer. So they bring 2 different things to the corner.
Pitches aren't like head and shoulders with those guys, or they're just working on that outside.
I wouldn't say head and shoulders, because you'll see Marsalis can play both sides. You know, we just put Orr in there really to show that Marsalis, we consider him a starter. And it's not a knock on Eric. We consider Eric a starter. We consider those 3 guys as 3 corners, if that makes sense. And T can go either one.
And on Victor Thomas, it looks like he's second on that depth chart there. Is that a reflection of the state of defensive tackle, or how he's been since he moved over?
Both. Yeah, both.
How many, do you have any,
The committee.
do you have any idea how many guys are going to play there yet in the game?
I have no idea. We're going to go in there and let it rip and see who's playing well. And I know you mean a tackle or the whole
tackle.
defensive
If
line.
you do with the rotation,
Yeah.
tackle, you got numbers.
You know, we may play five or so guys.
Jared,
It's,
when's the last time you started a 250-pound defensive tackle?
I think we had one at Clark Central when I was in high school. But you know, you gotta be, if you're not big, you gotta be quick and smart, so it's okay. You're already telling them what to do. 6'3", 250.
You think he's bigger than that?
No, I think that's soaking wet. Gotta be quick. You know, back in the old days, some of the greatest D tackles ever were about that size, weren't they? So we're going old school.
We're offensive linemen.
No, offensive linemen were about 220. We're gonna be okay. Y'all don't need to, you know, the first play of the game, if they're in some heavy formation, we may not have Gerald in the first play. You know, I think this is really an indicator of who's performing the best, if that makes sense. Gerald's a defensive end, he's gonna play some tackle, depending on the situation. I wouldn't overanalyze that. Y'all are scouring that depth chart. I'm looking for other things on there. I didn't realize that was that big a deal, though, when you came. I'll spend a little more time next time.
Depth chart's always big.
It is.
Yes,
you warn them.
Coach, with, all the stuff that the guys have been through, in the off season, does that help prepare them for the anxiety and all that stuff, or is it just involved?
I wish it did, but, you can't prepare yourself for the anxiety that hits you when you run out on that field. You really can't. And, sitting in a room trying to hash out an incident that occurred on Cumberland Avenue, I mean, that's no different than going to your parents' bedroom and talking it up, but out there, there's a lot of eyes on you, there's a high expectation to perform, and you gotta think quickly, you gotta react quickly, there's no time. And every move you make could be the devastating move that, puts us in a bad position for the game.
Does what they went through prepare them anyway for a football season, or contribute to how?
I think there's an argument that it can hurt or help chemistry, certainly. I hope that what it does prepare them for, Beth, is when it does get a little tough out there, which it will, that we stay together and we support each other and we play out, just like the kids have done every little piece of adversity that's hit them here in the last couple of years. They've hung together. The ones that are here have hung together, and they go on to the next thing. When Coach Farmer wasn't here, they rallied together and played for the last coach. And then when he left, they stayed together and they're rallying for me. So that's a tribute to those guys, and I do hope that keeps them together no matter what happens out there on the field.